I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
We have such sights to show you.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
I guess I was probably returning videotapes.
I am big. It's the picture that got small.
Who cares?
Welcome, listeners, and prepare yourselves to enter into a world of terror where one bad decision can turn an innocent person into a gruesome victim. Where if someone says to you, "Don't go in there," you should probably listen. And where you never, ever say, "Don't worry, I'll be right back," because you probably won't be. Please grab your popcorn and silence your phones as you settle in for this week's episode of the Movie Roulette Tuesday podcast. This is Rachel.
This is Carl.
Stop being annoyed.
And this is Matt. Did you ever have one of those like spooky Halloween cassettes?
Yes.
With like just the sound effects?
Yes, the creaking and
the sound effects, or sometimes they would have like little spoken word segments like that.
Like that.
It just reminded me.
That's what I was. Thank you. That's what I was going for.
Or I guess it's more like if you've ever played one of those games. Oh God, what was it? There was some game I had where there was like a tombstone, and you would put different tombstone combinations in it. Like it's a board game, and if you landed on a square, you'd have to pick up one of these things.
Not 13 Dead End Drive.
It wasn't 13 Dead End Drive, and you'd put it in there, and it would speak. So you'd have like this thing going on. I think it was a tape, and you plug the tape deck into this thing, and it would play
like a
certain segment, like the intro that you just gave.
Thank you. Or like
you can play Monster Mash now.
Vincent Price, spoken word. Tell us about what you bought.
Oh my God.
Because it kind of matches.
I got, let me get the name of the album right. It's a double LP, Vincent Price, Witchcraft and Magic. One of the most sinister, unsettling, and captivating spoken word records ever. So it's basically Vincent Price giving the history of witchcraft.
Wow.
But then also giving instructions on how to summon a demon. And it comes with like an 8-page booklet that has like drawings and like
the how-to.
But it also has like historical like witchcraft pictures, and it's Vincent Price.
Let me know when you need an exorcism. Okay.
But he also has cookbooks, which is what I love about Vincent Price.
He loved to cook. Who was he friends with? Julia Child? Something like that. He was friends with, I think it was Julia Child. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. That could be misinformation. I don't know. Anyway, we are continuing our theme of Rebel with a Cause. And my shakeup was that it must feature a cameo. I believe it was a surprise cameo, but I rejected the surprise part. Even though my movie, I think,
isn't every cameo a surprise?
That's what we said last week. Isn't it?
As long as they're not credited. Didn't we look it up and say a cameo is technically a cameo if they're not credited? If they're uncredited.
Yeah.
So, which I would take as being a surprise.
And it's a minor character.
And that was the takeaway when I entered this information into ChatGPT, when I asked it to come up with suggestions, because some of the suggestions, it really wasn't a cameo. It was just a famous actor or actress in a minor role. So I don't know. But I had 3 choices that I narrowed this down to. The first one was Into the Wild, which is a 2007 film about the dumbass Chris McCandless. That was also a book.
He was an idealist.
Sure, that's the nice way. I don't hold any love for this kid. I think he was foolish and frivolous, and
I don't have any love lost for him. I like the concept.
All right. Well,
the execution was left something to be desired.
He just was.
Well, he did die.
Dumb. Anyway, that was the rebellion was against kind of society and conformity, and I didn't pick it. But the cameo was supposedly Vince Vaughn, which I found a little weak. Like he plays, I think he's credited. He plays like the Chris McCandless's mentor. He's only in the movie briefly, but
That's not a cameo.
it's not a cameo, right? Then there was V for Vendetta, 2005, which is rebellion against the government. I always loved that. And the cameo was Stephen Fry. So that would have worked, I think, but I didn't want to watch that. Instead, my last pick, the one I chose, was 1996's Scream.
You're going to have to explain what the rebellion is.
Well, it's a little bit meta, okay? So the rebellion is that it's considered a horror rebellion. A group of high school friends defies the rules of slasher films while being stalked by a masked killer who thrives on breaking the typical horror conventions. So that's how it's a rebellion. It fights against the common tropes of horror during that time, especially the 70s, 80s, and 90s. What?
I haven't seen this in a while.
I haven't seen it
and
since
I'm excited
it came out.
to watch it again because I remember enjoying it. But I don't know that I buy that assessment.
Why?
Because how is it bucking any of these, tropes from or trends from these prior horror movies? I think if anything, it does a good job of incorporating a whole lot of them.
It's self-aware, from what I remember. It's a very self-aware movie. Well, so we can put a pin in that. We'll talk about it after we watch it.
Sure.
So this movie was directed by Wes Craven, who also did the Nightmare on Elm Street series, Last House on the Left, Swamp Thing. We all love that. And a movie we watched on the podcast, Deadly Friend.
That's right, with the greatest movie death of all time.
Tell us about it briefly.
Death by Basketball?
Yes.
I mean,
absolutely.
If
Your
you
favorite.
ever want to see Mama Fratelli get her head knocked off by a basketball,
Deadly Friend.
Deadly Friend is your Huckleberry.
That's the way to do it.
R.I.P. Val Kilmer.
Oh. This movie stars Neve Campbell. What happened to her?
She's still around.
Does she still act in things?
She still acts in Scream movies.
Does she?
She sure does.
What are we on? Like Scream 7's coming out next year or something? Okay. Courtney Cox, David Arquette, Drew Barrymore, and Matthew Lillard. So the cameo that was suggested to me was Henry Winkler. So he plays the high school principal. He was uncredited, and he remained uncredited because he didn't want to draw attention to himself. He wanted to allow the younger, less experienced actors of the film to shine, apparently.
He seems like a good dude.
I think he's real nice.
Yeah.
I get good vibes about Henry Winkler. I really do. Plus, he's hilarious in Arrested Development. He's funny. Parks and Rec. Dr. Saperstein. He's funny.
Those commercials about the degenerative eye disorder.
Oh, no. I haven't seen those.
Yeah.
I mean, who needed their careers boosted that was in this movie?
Oh, I don't-
where
look, I
Henry
don't-
Winkler's name would draw attention from
I'm
them.
not sure. Not Courtney Cox. She was
Not any of
Friends.
them. I mean,
She was in Friends.
Matt Lillard was in. Wasn't he in Hackers?
I think so.
That movie.
Yes.
I remember from 13
He
Ghosts.
He was in Five Nights at Freddy's.
Sneakers.
That's the most recent thing I've
He was
seen.
Shaggy in the Scooby-Doo movies.
He was.
Yeah,
So
well, he was in
weird.
Twin Peaks: The Return.
Yep, that's right. Another cameo, though. There's extra cameos in this. Wes Craven himself does a little Hitchcock. At around 52 minutes in the film, he plays Fred the janitor. He's wearing a red and green striped sweater, just like Freddy Krueger from A Nightmare on Elm Street.
See, that's a cameo.
They are also the actual clothes
proper
from A
cameo.
Nightmare on Elm Street. I agree. That's a cameo. And then the last cameo is Linda Blair. At around 39 minutes, the auburn-haired reporter who says, "People want to know. They have a right to know," was Linda Blair.
Well, another good cameo.
Right? So I have triple cameoed. In this movie, speaking of being self-aware, there is a character who talks about his rules of horror films. Randy's rules of horror. And they're pretty good. There's only 3 of them. The first rule is, does anyone know? Carl, do you remember?
I don't know. It's been a long time.
You can never have sex in a horror movie.
Yeah, you die.
Sex equals death. This rule plays on the genre's puritanical trope that the promiscuous always die. Only the virginals survive. So you can't be doing that. And plus you're distracted. 2, you can never drink or do drugs. This is an extension of rule number 1. Another moralistic trope, sin leads to death, and it's always the partiers who get picked off first. But it's true. If you think about like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, well, I would argue that those things put you in vulnerable scenarios where the last thing
That's
you're
right.
thinking of is
A killer.
imminent death.
Yeah. And then the last rule, number 3,
Maybe
is
certain drugs you would think of imminent death.
yeah, depends on how bad of a time you're having. Never, ever, under any circumstances, say, I'll be right back, because you won't be back. This one is all about tempting fate. Anyone too confident in their survival is doomed. So those are the 3 rules that are listed in the Scream movie. And I think that's a standard thing. There are other horror tropes, traditional ones. One is the final girl, typically virginal, resourceful, and the only survivor. You can think Laurie Strode from Halloween, Nancy Thompson from Elm Street, and I guess the girl in this film, although I find that questionable.
No, it's more people survive than just her.
Yes. Don't go in there is another trope. I think that's similar to I'll be right back. It's like, don't go in there. Characters always explore the creepy basement, the attic, the shed, because why not? Because you're going to die. And then this one's very important. The killer never dies on the first try. Just when you think they're dead, bam, one last scare. Scream calls this out directly. So those are important. Those are like the traditional, I would say, from like 70s through 90s, really up until Scream. That was the recipe, right? You had like a killer, and they're hunting people down, and the people who are probably engaging in things they shouldn't get killed first. And there's always some girl who makes it, right? I mean, can we all agree on that?
It's just like the slasher movie template of the
It
70s
really
and
was.
80s.
Yeah, it was. And I think that Scream speaks to that directly. Being like, yeah, all right, we know this. We know this story.
I think it's important to draw a distinction, and Carl made it, where it is a slasher movie type of, rule set as opposed to applicable to just horror. In general.
It is. You're right. It's very much a slasher movie because there are different types of horror movies, and we're going to talk about that too. But
well, then you had a movie like Cabin in the Woods that happened much later than Scream, but it was a similar situation where they were playing on the rules of these kinds of movies.
Right. That's right. Mm-hmm. So then there were meta or modern tropes, and these are horror movie tropes that have happened in the post-Scream era. So one, and I couldn't think of anything besides this Scream movie, but one is the self-aware victim, characters who know they're in a horror movie and try to outsmart the genre. Can we think of any?
Like Scary Movie?
That's like a parody of a parody. I don't know. I couldn't think of one for that, and it didn't give me any examples, so.
Or like Zombieland? Kind of.
Because they talk about like the double tap. Like he had his own set of rules.
Yeah. Yep. So that's probably a good one. I think that's the closest. 2, modern trope, found footage. That was big for a while, like the Blair Witch Project, Paranormal Activity, any real footage that turns terrifying, right? And they
still put movies like that out.
What's out there now? That's not like a sequel that's similar to that.
I mean, there's some Bigfoot movies that are found footage. I mean, there's a
Bigfoot.
ton of found footage movies that are still
those VHS movies.
VHS movies, the Rec movies, REC.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. All right. Okay. The red herring. That's every movie. A character designed to seem guilty, but it's all misdirection. The trauma plot. This has happened more recently. Horror as a metaphor for grief or PTSD. Think Hereditary, The Babadook, or Midsummer.
Jacob's Ladder.
Mm-hmm. Jacob's Ladder. Yeah, that's probably the original one. Elevated horror, which is that A24 style horror that's artsy, slow burn, and usually a commentary on something deeper. And then, the cult twist, thinking of the House of the Devil. Everything seemed normal until, surprise, everyone's in a satanic cult. Like Rosemary's Baby, Hereditary, we could say The House of the Devil. And
Midsummer.
Midsummer, I didn't see that. We didn't see that.
No.
And then the last is that smartphones never work. Dead battery, no signal, are suddenly tossed out the window.
Well, why?
Which that needs to be. Because you can't be, we talked about this with House of the Devil. You can't be in constant communication and still be in peril like that.
That's right.
Somebody posting on Facebook, "Oh my God, y'all, I'm totally being hunted."
Yeah. Or live streaming it.
Right. Which, hey,
I'm
that
sure
could be its own,
Yeah.
I'm sure it is, but a lot
I think
of
there are
times it
creative
just
ways of, allowing the use of modern technology in some of these movies and still
Yeah.
having, plausible reasons why
the fear.
things happen.
Yeah, I guess so. So I thought some of those were interesting, and I tried to, think about movies that applied. It's hard for me because I don't really like horror movies.
And you picked one for your week.
I did, going outside of my comfort zone. So then I thought about horror movies throughout the decades, throughout the years, because they're all a little bit different. Like we just mentioned slasher movies. That's very much the 1980s. That was the decade of slasher films.
Well, late 70s.
I don't agree with that. I mean, slasher movies have been going on for a very long time.
Well,
I don't know that the 80s, like a lot came out during that period for sure, but they still do.
Would you like to take a journey through time with me?
Please.
Okay. So this list I have started with the 30s, although I would say from the dawn of film to the 30s, that was considered the Gothic age of horror, where the key fears were the unknown, the monstrous, the other, like Nosferatu or Frankenstein. The style was atmospheric and theatrical, often based on literature. The icons at the time were Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, all those.
A lot of Universal monsters.
Thank you, Universal
A lot
monsters.
of castles and fog.
Yes, Gothic, right?
Yeah.
How about like cosmic horror during that period, like H.P. Lovecraft type?
Did they make a lot of movies of that at the time? I don't think so.
I don't know.
I think it really was Gothic. There were a lot of vampires and werewolves and mummies. And yes, I think a lot of it was based on literature. And then in the 40s, there were shadows of war and psychological horror. So the key fears in the 40s were war, makes sense, World War II, identity, science versus superstition. The trend was that more subtle psychological horror emerges. Notable films include Cat People, The Wolf Man, and Dead of Night. Horror becomes more internalized, less monsters, more mind games. I don't recall a lot of good horror movies from the 40s, though. No?
I don't know. It's not in my.
I'd have to.
So. Nothing springs to mind,
I'd have to look
I guess,
into
is
it.
what I'm saying. Yeah, you would. You'd have to look into it. In the 1950s, horror turned into
More sci-fi, right?
sci-fi. Yeah.
Giant bugs and
Yes, aliens
and
and Cold War panic. So key fears that were played upon were nuclear fallout, alien invasion, and communism.
blobs.
Blobs. Beware of the blob. The trend was atomic age monsters and sci-fi mashups because you had, the atomic bomb, you had the Cold War, aliens, UFOs. Iconic movies from that time were Invasions of the Body Snatchers, The Thing from Another World, and Godzilla. Is Godzilla a horror movie? No? Yes?
It's a monster movie.
Well, is that a horror movie?
I would never. I mean, I would never think of it in that way. But
Okay. And then in the 60s, we have the rise of realism and social commentary. So we've moved away from sci-fi and the fantastical. We're going to get more gritty.
we haven't really moved away from sci-fi. I mean,
I meant from the 50s to the 60s. The focus was no longer on sci-fi.
I think there
Moved
are
on.
still tons of sci-fi related movies, especially due to the space race occurring during the 1960s.
Well, Star Trek, right? Wasn't that 60s, the original series?
The show, yes.
Yeah, it was. Key fears in the 60s were social change, the breakdown of norms, mental illness. The trend was psychological horror and boundary-pushing violence. Iconic movies were Psycho, which was 1960, The Haunting, 63, and, Carl, Night of the Living Dead.
68.
Yep. Horror turned inward and political, challenging censorship and societal taboos. And then we have the 1970s, the golden age of grit and gore. Key fears were religion, the family unit, serial killers, and the occult. The trend was gritty, nihilistic, often based on true quote-unquote true stories. Iconic movies were The Exorcist, which was 73, Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 74, Halloween 78, and Carrie 76. Horror becomes raw and real, confronting fears of the era head on. 1980s, the slasher boom and VHS culture. Key fears at the time were teen culture, technology, the other within suburban life. Trend was slashers, practical effects, body horror, excess. I would agree with that. Iconic films during this time were Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Hellraiser, The Fly. And then horror at this time gets commercialized and chaotic, thriving on overkill, and VHS spreads the blood. Which is true, right? The shock, and it's like, rent this at the movie store. Like, did you guys go to Major Video and try to pick out like the goriest, grossest thing?
Sometimes, yeah.
Right,
100%.
I didn't do that, but yeah. The 1990s was meta horror and genre deconstruction. Key fears included media saturation, irony, and loss of originality. Trends were self-aware horror like Scream, serial killers, and psychological twists. Icons at the time were Scream, The Sixth Sense. I don't feel that that's a horror movie. I guess it is.
Yeah.
It's a thriller, right?
Horror thriller?
Supernatural thriller.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Blair Witch Project. That was good. That was good because I remember when that movie came out, people really truly believed the rumor that it was found footage.
It was genius marketing.
It was.
Yeah.
It really was.
Because there was nothing like it at the time.
Not at all.
No.
And it was filmed in a way that was very unique. And Candyman. Damn it, Candyman.
Who opened a credit card in my name?
Damn it, Candyman.
Well, Blair Witch was made at a perfect time where it's like you didn't, like, the internet was around, but like it wasn't.
It was very rudimentary.
So it's like they couldn't come out with a movie like that now and have people thinking it was real. Like it wouldn't happen.
Right on the cusp of, not having enough not having access to enough information to verify whether it was true or not. Yeah. So I think that's what made it so magical.
I don't know. That's a good question. Could a movie like that survive or thrive today? And there have been other movies and TV shows that have made creative use of modern technology where they'll create whole websites devoted to, like, that appear to be something that they're not, which is really a part of their marketing campaign to bring people in. Or
like little Easter eggs or cookies or like.
Yeah, or just like there's a company in the movie that's featured, so they'll make a website, a real website for that company, and people will post links to weird products on it, and that'll bring people to the website, and they'll check it out, and I don't know. There's viral marketing like that.
Yeah, there's an interesting way to
today
to market in that way. That is true.
But Blair Witch, you're right. What was unique in that fact? Because I remember the marketing. I worked at a record store at the time.
I remember believing it.
There were flyers that got put up,
like missing posters.
Yeah. Or you'd read an article in a new, in a zine or something, or it's like, what is this? And they really found this footage.
Yeah,
blah, blah,
I
blah.
believed
They're
it at
putting together.
first.
They're going to release it. Yeah.
Eventually, right before we saw the movie ourselves, I don't know, something clicked, or I verified something, and I'm like, okay, it's not real. Mm-hmm. But before that, I was like, oh my God, this really happened? So I got suckered in. But yeah, the 90s, horror rebels against itself, calls out its own tropes and redefines them. So now we're moving into the new millennium, 2000s. Found footage, so more of that, more of like Blair Witch, and torture porn, the Saw movies. Key fears were
Okay. No, I take issue with that. The first Saw movie is fantastic.
Is it?
Yes.
Why?
Because the premise is super interesting. You start off with, the character handcuffed to a radiator, he's in the same room as the person who is ultimately the killer. Like, it's a great story.
Okay.
And it's not this. I don't think it falls underneath that umbrella of torture porn kind of thing, which there are a lot of movies that do.
The Hostel movies, I feel like, were more like torture porn.
Really?
Yeah.
Gross. All right. Key fears in the 2000s were surveillance, terrorism, and bodily autonomy. When did the human centipede come out? Was that time?
Don't eat the cuttlefish.
That's not bodily autonomy. The trend was gritty realism, like in Saw and Hostel, and found footage, like Paranormal Activity. And there were a lot of remakes, which we've talked about in the past. Tons of horror remakes. Iconic films of the time: The Ring, The Grudge, which is interesting. Those are both Japanese remakes. Saw, and 28 Days Later, which was a good movie. Mm-hmm. They're coming out with 28 Years Later?
Yeah.
When's that happening? Soon?
Soon. Like, it's made. They're showing trailers for it.
I'd like to see that.
I think this year it comes out.
Yeah. At this time, horror films split. Some go hyper real, like found footage. Others push extreme body horror, which I guess is like the torture porn. How many Saw movies are there?
Oh, God.
Like 12?
I don't know. A lot.
Ridiculous amount.
Yeah.
Then there's the 2010s, which is elevated horror and trauma tales. This is like millennial horror. Sorry. Key fears were grief, identity, generational trauma, and societal collapse. Trends were A24 style slow burns, prestige horror, multicultural horror stories. Iconic films of the time were Hereditary, Get Out, The Witch, It Follows, The Babadook. What was It Follows?
It Follows was the one where it was passed on through sex, and like a thing would follow you that only you can see, and you had to have sex with somebody else
and dump
to
it
pass
off.
it to them.
Yeah, I remember that.
But then if it kills them, it'll then go back to the last person. So you basically have to just keep on passing it to another person.
Wow, it's like an STD. Is that the...
That was the whole... Yeah, I mean, that was the,
That's an STD.
the analogy there.
Horror becomes artful and emotional, sophisticated storytelling with social weight.
I do feel like that period is more of a horror renaissance.
I know.
I honestly
you've said
do,
that.
because it before that point, I don't think that horror was taken seriously.
Yeah.
As a genre. Like, there were people that enjoyed it, but from a mainstream standpoint, like, horror movies are never nominated for awards.
Yeah.
They don't get a lot of that attention, but starting with those movies,
Yeah.
I think it was weightier. Like,
They're more thoughtful. They're
Right.
trying to incorporate themes and elements and deeper ideas and deeper meaning, more than just here's this killer.
Right, like
And they're coming to get you.
I love plenty of horror
Sure.
movies that would be widely considered crap by mainstream audiences, but I like them. They're fun.
yeah.
Like a lot of the movies you just mentioned are good movies. Like, not even just horror movies. They're good movies that just happen to be horror movies.
I liked Hereditary. I thought that was really good, and it was a commentary on intergenerational trauma.
Of course, yeah.
I didn't see Get Out. I've never seen that. The Witch.
Didn't like it.
You know, Robert Eggers has a problem where he creates this atmosphere, and it's great, but I feel like, and I think he's getting, well, I think he's getting better. I think he has a hard time ending his movies. Like, even The Northman, The Witch, even The Lighthouse to a degree. It's just, I don't know.
Well, The Lighthouse is a perfect example of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. We just
Where didn't wait, did he finish that one?
no, I think a brother or a cousin finished it, right? Do you remember this, Carl?
No.
No. We read about it because
Yeah.
we were weirded out by the ending. Although the second time we watched it, I felt like the ending was different than the first time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it was. I give up. But I don't know. And then the Babadook. That was pretty good. I liked that. That was about trauma also. And then this current decade, the 2020s, is about digital dread and horror hybrids. So the key fears include isolation, misinformation, technology, climate change, and pandemic. Oh, God.
See, that's like Black Mirror.
Yeah. Trend hybrid genres like horror comedy and horror drama. Screen life?
Yeah.
Host? What's screen life? I don't know what that is.
Being online.
Oh. Whoops. Okay. Gen Z horror and diverse voices. Iconic movies of the time are Barbarian, Megan, Smile, The Invisible Man, and Talk to Me, which we saw Talk to Me on the podcast. Horror goes global, inclusive, and tech savvy, redefining fear for a connected world. So I thought that was a pretty good breakdown over the decades of the overarching kinds of horror movies that were made.
This isn't exclusive to horror films, but, generally speaking, the majority, like there's always edge cases, right? But the majority of what gets put out has to have some element
Appeal.
of the zeitgeist.
Yes, the zeitgeist, the
right?
best word ever.
It has to incorporate, the concerns and fears of the people of that era.
Yeah, definitely. But this is a good breakdown.
some are timeless, but a lot of them are tied to that period.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely. But do either of you have a favorite subgenre of horror or decade or type of horror movie that you gravitate towards or prefer or always will, it's like I could always watch that?
I mean, for me, it depends.
On what?
It depends on the mood I'm in. I mean,
I'm just saying overall.
My favorite horror movie of all time is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is 70s.
Okay.
So I do think from a quality of horror movie standpoint,
Yeah.
prior to the recent ones that we named, I feel like the last time horror movies were held to that standard
Yeah.
it was the 70s.
Okay.
The Exorcist?
Right, The Exorcist, like all of those, Rosemary's Baby. Like I feel like
I didn't like Rosemary's Baby.
it was horror movies were more not artsy, but they were just less schlock and more substance to them in the 70s. Whereas
But don't
80s it got kind of silly, but
but there was also a lot more of them, right?
in the 80s, you mean, or the 70s?
In the 80s.
Oh, there was a proliferation of it in the 80s.
Yeah, so I just think that,
I think there were. Oh, go ahead.
the content canon, right? Where everything's just, there's a lot more of
Because
it.
of video stores, and it's like we got to fill shelves. And they're cheap. It's
Exactly.
like, let's just
Yeah, but
churn these out.
I
Yep.
think there were a ton of horror movies turned out in the 70s as well, just for kids to go see on a weekend. That generated its own revenue. There was a ton of that.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, it wasn't the same as like that content generator that was the drive-in theater where they just needed content to put up. But yeah, I think in the 80s it was the advent of the rental video market.
Right, because you could go in the 70s and the 50s through 70s. You were at the mercy of whatever was playing. You could choose not to go, but 9 times out of 10, I bet you went because you wanted to be with your friends and you wanted to go out, and that's what was playing at the movies. When you get into the 80s and 90s, you had choice. You'd go to the video store. So yes, the movie would come out and you would choose whether or not to go, but then it had second life, which we talked about.
Not
that
just
was
Second
a lot
Life. There were a lot of films made where
Revenue.
that was their goal, was to end up on the racks in the video
Right.
store.
They didn't even go to theaters.
Yeah.
straight to
Straight
video.
to video.
Yeah.
And that was how they made money. And so, yeah, I can see how that, they tried to lure people in with craziness or
Yeah.
you like that. But no, nobody prefers like a slasher film or
I don't do favorites. I mean, there are certain.
I said prefers. I didn't say favorite.
You did say favorite, but
No, I didn't.
I don't know. I like a lot of the weirdo horror, like cosmic horror, psychological horror.
What's cosmic horror?
Like the H.P. Lovecraft immediately comes to mind.
Oh.
That otherworldly, like unknown,
Okay.
like dread.
Okay. Inexplicable dread.
Yeah, I mean, and we watched what was it? The
Color.
Colorado Space.
Colorado
Yeah.
Space is a good example.
Okay.
Of that style, I suppose. And then Friday the 13th. I love those movies. They're so dumb. Like the early ones are great.
Yeah.
It's just stupid fun.
And
Yep.
and that's it. You know what you're getting. It doesn't
Yeah.
try to be anything else. And I like Hellraiser is a classic. I think the book is way better.
It's a book?
Hellraiser?
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know.
Sure you did.
I did?
Yeah.
Oh.
You forgot.
I
It's
forgot.
okay.
Now I know again.
I remember when I was a kid, the library, I forgot the name of the company that put the books out. I could look it up. They had orange spines. They were very thin, hardcover books. And they had like a Dracula one, a Frankenstein one. So they basically had one for like all the Universal monsters. But then they also had a Godzilla one. And it was a whole series of books. And I remember I would sign them out of the library
And read them.
constantly.
Really? How cute.
And that, I mean, I was obsessed with Godzilla movies when I was younger because they were always on TV too, on like Channel 56 or whatever on a Saturday. There'd be a Godzilla movie. So I don't know that I have a favorite. I have I gravitate toward different things depending on my mood.
Yeah.
See, it's funny. The Universal monsters never appealed to me. I
Oh
always
my
thought that they
God,
were
they're
dumb
my
and silly.
favorite. No.
I understand, like as an adult, I understand their place and whatever, but no, they never appealed to me growing up. Like Stephen King, his books were my first exposure to him before I ever saw any of his made-for-TV or theatrical releases. And the same thing with Clive Barker. I would always gravitate towards that stuff. And then, not just Color Out of Space for cosmic horror, but also like, oh my gosh, the movie with Sam Neill where he's the author.
Oh,
In the Mouth of Madness.
In the Mouth of Madness. Excuse me. That has a lot of Lovecraftian cosmic dread type stuff. I like those
I
because
don't think I ever saw that.
there's a lot. It's not a focus on just one thing. It's like this whole other world, and you're only shown bits and pieces of it.
What about Event Horizon?
Oh, God.
That's a great movie. I like Event Horizon a
terrifying.
lot. Yeah.
That's like,
What year was that? 90s or 2000s?
I feel like that was
I feel like
the
that was late
90s.
90s.
Okay.
I'll look it up
Well,
while
it doesn't
you're
matter.
chatting.
But
Also with Sam Neill.
I know. I never saw In the Mouth of Madness.
It's good.
Saw Event
which I
Horizon.
find surprising because I've seen that movie a lot.
Well, you must have seen it without me. Event Horizon was 1997
Wow. Okay.
with Lawrence Fishburne and Sam Neill. Yeah, that's a wild ending. Yikes. Whoa. That was like the first time I saw Hellraiser. I was like blown away. Ugh.
But it's an interesting story. It's not just. There's more to chew on. It's not like just a slasher type of movie, which again is totally fine. It's just something like Hellraiser brings more to the story. There's more to think about. There's more elements of good and evil and choices and desire.
Yeah, dread.
Well, and that's like the Romero zombie movies, his original zombie movies, because obviously he went way longer than he should have with those. But like Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead, and
Yeah.
Day of the Dead to a lesser extent, but they all have messages that they're trying to get across outside of just being zombie movies. Like there's a point to them.
Yeah, commentary on society and
Consumerism
Yeah,
and all
yep.
that stuff.
definitely.
Yeah.
Which is good. You want that in a movie. Sometimes you don't. You just want to turn your brain off and
But you can enjoy them that way too.
that's
Yeah.
If you
that
didn't
is
want to think
true.
about the message,
That's right.
You just want somebody getting their guts ripped out.
Yeah,
you
just
get that too.
Eat some brains. That's cool. Yeah. So, Yeah, that's all I got to say about that. That was my deep dive into horror films across the years.
That was good.
And their tropes and whatever. But I still don't like them.
But you picked one.
But I picked one. Well, how bad can this be? I've seen it. I liked it. I remember liking it when I saw it. I think I like it because it is self-aware.
Mm-hmm.
But
and it's well written.
Yeah. Well, Wes Craven's good. So, Carl, what do we have for dinner?
We had sort of an Asian theme. Right?
Sort of.
So we had some fried rice.
We had pork fried rice.
Pork fried rice. We had some egg rolls.
Egg rolls and that crazy kimbap.
The kimbap and a delicious, you called it Korean sauce. I don't know what it was specifically outside of Korean sauce.
Yum
sauce
from Trader Joe's. It
was good.
Really good. And then I made chocolate peanut butter tahini brownies for dessert.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we'll be having that halfway through. So let's go I Scream, You Scream.
And we're watching this.
Oh, we're going to watch it on Max. That's where it is right now. We all scream for Scream.
Give me some sort of signal there that we're done.
We're done.
We're done.
Let's go.
Right. We'll be back.
Okay. And we're back. We have watched Scream, and we have survived following the rules, Randy's rules. What did we think of this movie, video film?
I think it's still a good movie.
Yeah.
It's an enjoyable watch. It's funny. It's fun. It keeps your attention. I mean, it's nothing,
It's not earth-shattering or anything.
No, but it doesn't need to be.
It's great.
It's a good 90s slasher film, right?
Yeah.
I thought so.
Carl?
You know what struck me watching? It's been a long time since I've watched the original Scream.
I haven't watched the original since like 1997.
And it's awesome. I mean, the opening scene of this movie is one of my favorite opening scenes in any movie. It sets the tone. It's cool.
Yeah.
It is. It's good.
But what struck me in watching this is that at its core, it's a whodunit.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Which it references.
The fact that, because there's certain slashers, it's like Halloween, it's Michael Myers.
Yeah, it's
Friday
right
the
up front.
13th, it's Jason.
Yeah.
This movie really, you don't know.
No.
And they leave you little, possibilities. They'll zoom in on the police chief's shoes or the sheriff's shoes because they matched the shoes you saw earlier in the movie.
Yeah.
And they reference the father and, he's not at the hotel.
Right.
And it got me thinking, Glass Onion or Murder on the Orient Express. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't consider those horror movies.
No.
But they're doing the same thing in terms of there's somebody that's killing people
and we don't know
who it is.
Who did it. Yeah.
So what makes this a horror movie?
Oh, I'm going to go with all the knifing.
Is it the gore? Is it simply the gore?
Yes.
I mean, there's a heavy focus on the actual, bringing harm to somebody else, bits of it. That does come up in, something like a murder mystery.
Usually, in a murder mystery, like an Agatha Christie mystery, yes, murder is occurring. And sometimes it can be gruesome, but the focus is not on the murders themselves. It's on the solving of the puzzle.
Yeah, but the focus is not necessarily on strictly the murders in this either.
This movie is so meta. It's a commentary on horror movies, and part of that commentary, I think, is the whodunit. Because that's part of who's the killer.
Yeah, but at its core, I don't know. If someone wanted to argue the point that this was not a horror movie, I would agree with them.
That's more of a whodunit?
Yeah, it's more of a thriller.
It's a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I think it's all of those things. I think it's a horror, thriller, comedy.
This doesn't
satire
strike me as a slasher movie at all, really. It's more of it's like, yes, there's killing in it, but it doesn't fall in with a lot of the other, movies.
But it's about a slasher killer.
In that style. That's right. It's about that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's
I think
the
that's
meta part.
that's part of what makes it compelling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like it. It's different. It's different from anything that came before it.
I also, and I thought this when I first saw it, and this is a running theme with all of them, in that the Ghostface gets his ass kicked. Like, through the whole, like, he's getting punched and hit in the face with stuff.
Kicked in the balls.
Kicked in the nuts and tumbling over things. And,
oh, my balls.
Like, he's fallible. Like, he's
just a person. And I was thinking about it because it is funny. Like, that's just funny. And it kind of, it lessens the threat a little bit, but not really. But it's true that in reality, if you were a masked killer, a knife-wielding mass killer, people are going to try to fight back, and you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Like, it's just...
Well, I mean, luckily there were two of them. There wasn't just...
That's right.
Just one. It was a team.
Which is an interesting...
That helps explain, how did they get there so fast? How did this happen? Blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
where am I in the house?
And this is one of those movies where it's neat to watch it again once you know.
I think it's a fun movie to go back, and look at things and figure it out. But
yeah, I mean, the real killers are heavily suggested. Like,
I think... All right, so let me give a very brief... I'm not going to go killing by killing. Just a brief recap of the movie. The main character is played by Neve Campbell, and it's Sydney.
Yeah, don't waffle too much.
I'll try not to waffle. Do you want to explain that? Or no?
Oh, no, I know Carl wants to.
Carl, do you want to do this now?
Yeah,
do you want to get this out of the way?
We can.
All right.
So
tell this
up until
movie.
recently, we've been getting our fan mail predominantly from friend of the show, Jared.
Jared, which is awesome. Jared, keep sending us fan mail.
Yes, we love your messages, Jared, and we don't want to dissuade you.
They're
but
uplifting.
we got one of our seldom seen non-Jared messages from a listener from New Zealand.
Yes,
so
a Kiwi.
We've got our Kiwi friends in New Zealand.
Well, I don't think he's a friend.
Well, he offered some criticism, and it was on our Threads episode, and his comment was like, "Quit with the waffling and review Threads."
It's like that's all we do is waffle. That's this podcast.
So that's just I'm assuming he didn't listen to the first episode of the podcast where we explain our mission statement.
This isn't a Marvel multiverse thing. Like, you can dip in.
Yes.
You don't have to start at the beginning and listen to every episode.
No.
But if you're not used to how we do this, it's not like the movie's an excuse to talk about all kinds of shit.
That's right.
including the movie.
It's our movie night. We've had this movie night for over 10 years now. It's been forever.
And we waffle.
And
there's waffling all over.
we shoot the shit about things. And
Belgian waffling.
And people in our lives had commented, "Oh, I wish we could go to your movie night because it sounds like a lot of fun." So
That's right.
we
said no.
said no. You're not invited.
It's an exclusive club.
We'll do the next best thing, and we'll
share it.
hook some microphones up to ourselves and record it and let you listen. So it's are we watching a movie and talking about it? Yes.
Yep.
Are we also talking about eustachian tubes and what we would spend $30 million
humans
on? And cannibalism.
Totally.
And bees.
Yeah.
And all sorts of non-movie related things.
Yep.
100%. We are not, the purpose of this show is not for a critical, a scholarly analysis.
That's a bonus
of these movies.
You're going to get a scholarly analysis.
Three normal people that dig watching movies that are watching said movies,
but are also friends and talking.
About stuff because that's what we do when we hang out on our weekly hangout.
So if you don't like waffling or waffles, then maybe this podcast isn't for you.
Go play rugby.
Seek elsewhere.
But we love New Zealand.
Oh yeah. Lord of the Rings was
beautiful
filmed there.
place. Lord of the Rings,
sheep.
Flight of the Conchords.
A lot of sheep.
Many things.
I bought some excellent yarn from New Zealand for my knitting. So, I have lots of good things, but they don't like waffles there. So
there's a lot of waffling on our podcast.
So there is. I'm unabashed waffling. Anyway, so I'm going to waffle on. Scream. Heroine, main character, is Sydney, played by Neve Campbell. And Sydney is a high school senior. And a year ago, her mom was brutally raped and murdered. And she thought she knew who the killer was. And she put him away but that's all in the past. Like, we're just up to speed on that. So she lives with her dad, and she goes to high school. But before all that, the movie opens, and it is a great opening, with Drew Barrymore. Her character's name is Cindy, I think. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. And she's home alone, and she's a senior in high school also.
Casey.
I was close. Cindy, Casey, whatever. And she's home alone, and she's making some Jiffy Pop on the stove, and she's going to watch a movie, and the phone rings. And it seems like a wrong number, and she hangs up, and then the phone rings again, and it's the same man on the phone. And the person on the phone is switching between friendly and malevolent. Like, hey, what are you doing? And are you dating anybody? And then, don't hang up on me. So she kind of gets freaked out, hangs up the phone a few times, and this person calls back, and it escalates. And as it escalates, you're going through, again, all of these horror movie tropes. This girl's home alone. She picks up the phone. At one point, the caller says something about being able to see her, so you know he's there.
It's almost like when a stranger calls. Like, the
exactly.
call's calling from inside
the house.
Yeah.
And then he starts, like, ringing the doorbell, and she goes, who's there? And he's like, you never say who's there. So right away, the movie is very self-aware.
Well, and it starts talking about, what's your favorite
horror movie? Why? Yeah. And then she's like, you know what? My boyfriend's coming over. And he's like, look outside. And the boyfriend's tied up outside.
Like, is his name Steve?
Yeah. So basically he plays this game with her where she's supposed to answer horror movie trivia questions, and she gets one wrong, and he kills Steve. He, like, guts him. So now she's totally freaked out, and he's chasing her he gets in, he's chasing her all around the house. She gets outside. She sees her parents driving home, but not before it's too late, and she gets knifed to death by the Scream guy.
Within, like, 20 feet of her parents.
Yeah. And then,
like, heartbreaking.
The parents can't find her, and then they go outside, and she's hanging from a tree, and her guts are spilling out. So that's the beginning of the movie. And so the movie has the credits, and then it opens, and everyone's talking about Casey's death, and Casey and Steve. And Sydney has a boyfriend and a group of friends. She's got Billy as the boyfriend, and Billy sneaks into her room, and he's trying to, like, have sex with her, and she's like, I don't want to do that. And he keeps asking for it. She's like, no.
She has unresolved trauma.
Right. She's like, I can't. My mom. I can't get over what happened to my mom. So Billy's trying that angle. She's got a friend, Tatum, a girlfriend. And Tatum is dating another guy named Stu, played by Matthew Lillard. Yeah. And then there's Randy, the friend zone friend. And so they all hang out together, and they're talking about this killer. And the principal is played by Henry Winkler, and he's always a delight.
I was just thinking delightful.
He is.
He's delightful. He's just this weird, corny principal.
And so, without going into super detail, basically this killer keeps popping up, and now he's harassing Sydney, and people around her are getting murdered, and he calls her on the phone, and then he chases her around, and she's clever enough to escape him. Sydney, it always feels like she's in the know, like she knows what's going on, or she thinks this is a bunch of bullshit. Like, at one point, the killer's on the phone with her, and he's like, I'm outside on your front porch. And she's like, oh yeah? And she goes outside, and she's like, what am I doing now? And she's picking her nose. And so she thinks it's like a joke, or she thinks it's ridiculous. But anyway, he's serious. And all these friends keep dying, to the point where they've imposed a curfew on the town, and school has canceled. In the meantime, there's a reporter, a plucky reporter, an investigative reporter played by Courtney Cox, that comes on the scene. And you find out that she and Sydney have a history, because she covered the trial of the mom's murder.
Cotton Weary.
Cotton Weary. Okay. And I guess is coming out with a book and maybe said some unsavory things about the mom.
Well, she doesn't think that Cotton Weary really killed the mom.
Courtney Cox's character,
right. And
Gail Weathers, doesn't. You're right.
And the book is purporting that he was framed, which obviously Sidney's like,
no.
I saw him there.
Yeah, there's evidence and whatever. And then there's Dewey, the deputy, played by David Arquette.
Tatum's brother.
Who is Tatum's brother. He's kind of a dork, and nobody takes him seriously as a police deputy.
Well, because he grew up there, so it's just like somebody you went to high school with. All
And his
of a sudden
sister doesn't respect him. And so anyway, basically, as this goes along and the killer is killing friends all around them and threatening Sidney, all these people are possible suspects, right? All these people in the movie. And the movie does a really good job, to Carl's point, of making it a whodunit. It really points the finger at different possible suspects. The main suspect, and the one that Sidney suspects, is her boyfriend, Billy. But the movie...
And her dad.
And her, well,
who can't be located.
Right,
at
they can't
this
find her
hotel where
dad.
he's supposed to be at.
They wonder if the dad maybe murdered the mom or is losing it because it's coming up on the anniversary of the mom's death.
Mm-hmm.
So
and at one point, the calls were traced to his phone.
That's right. So they're like, it has to be him. But Sidney really suspects her boyfriend, Billy. And so the first time that the ghost face guy breaks in the house... Her house, sorry, you're right, her house, she barricades herself in her room and starts dialing 911 on her computer. And then the killer runs away. And then all of a sudden, Billy appears climbing up into her window from the outside. And it freaks her out.
Well, and he has a cell phone. He
That's
drops
right.
the cell phone
That's right.
while he's climbing in.
So she connects the dots. She's like, this killer called me. He must have had a cell phone. You're here right now. So I think it's you. And she has him arrested. While he's arrested... She goes to stay at her friend's house. Billy is at the police station. And at her friend's house, Sid gets another call from the killer. So that's kind of like, oh, well, I guess we can rule Billy out now because he was detained.
He's got an alibi.
Right. So all that's going on. And then in the background, Courtney Cox's character is starting a romantic relationship with David Arquette's character, which is kind of cute because they were married in real life,
It didn't
right?
start off as romantic. She was like, I need an in to be able to investigate this.
Yeah, she kind of uses him, and he's enamored of her, but it ends up being wholesome.
Yeah.
And it is cute, and they become like a little investigative team. But anyway, the whole movie culminates with a party at Stu's house because they all are out of school, and there's a curfew, so they're like, come to my house. And you guys might have to help me. So basically, they're at this party. Billy gets released from the police station.
Well, Tatum dies first.
In the garage.
The
killer kills her.
With a garage door. With a motorized garage door.
It's very horror movie-ish. Yeah, and then Sid realizes, she's like, I can't focus on my mom forever. I need to move on with my life. So she brings Billy upstairs and sleeps with him and loses her virginity. And at the same time, downstairs, we have Randy talking about his rules. Mm-hmm. How don't have sex, don't drink or do drugs, don't say I'll be right back. And so now you've realized that, Sydney is at risk because she's no longer a virgin. Because the movie talks about that multiple times. And at one point, Sydney's talking to the boyfriend and saying, oh, this feels like a movie. So the movie itself is very self-aware of what it is. And then, oh my God, then...
And that brings up the whole theme of blurring the lines between fantasy and reality.
Right.
Where these people end up getting, I have trouble discerning between what's acceptable in a film and what can actually happen in real life, and trying to bring things across the line from one space into the other, which is what those characters are doing, but it's also kind of what the movie's doing in its own way.
Yeah.
So Ghostface ends up attacking Billy because she's talking to Billy about who'd you call while you were in jail. Just kind of
so she's still
being
thinking,
casual, but
she's still thinking about it, and she still doesn't trust Billy, even though she just slept with him. And she's like, when you were in the police station,
when you got arrested, who did you call?
You got one phone call, and he goes, "Oh, I called my dad." She goes, "No, you didn't. I saw some detective call your dad."
And they said, "Oh, when I called, he didn't answer."
And he's like, "Oh, you think that I called you from the police station?"
Well, no, he said, "What can I say to make you think I'm not the killer?" And she said, "Oh, it would have been a smart way to fool me by calling me while you were in prison, and threatening me."
But then Ghostface comes in
and stabs Billy.
So you're like, "Oh, well, there's no way he's the killer." So you're thrown off the trail again. And then he chases her all around the house again. She runs outside. Mm-hmm. And then through a series of events, I don't want to get into the details, Randy gets shot. David Arquette's character gets stabbed in the back. Courtney Cox crashes into a tree. And now Sydney goes back into the house, right?
Yeah, she runs back to the house, and then she is confronted by Stu and Randy.
Right.
At the front door.
And
they're accusing each other of being the killer.
And she has a gun at this point from the series of events. And so she doesn't know she doesn't trust anybody anymore. So she points the gun at them, goes in the house, and locks them out. And they're banging on the door, let us in. And then Billy comes down the stairs, and he's acting like he is wounded.
It's not graceful going down the stairs. Ah! He rolls down the stairs pretty much.
So he rolls down the stairs, and then
she's freaking out about the two outside. He says, "Give me the gun." He takes the gun from her.
That's right.
And then he opens the front door. Stu is gone.
Right, but Randy's
there.
Yeah.
And Randy's like, "Oh my God, Stu's gone crazy."
Yeah.
And then at that point, Billy points the gun at Randy and shoots him.
And kills him.
Well, doesn't kill him.
Oh, that's right. But shoots him.
That's right. And the bullet propels Randy through the air, through like a coffee table.
It's amazing. So then all is kind of revealed.
Yes.
At this point. And Billy's like, "You know what? I am the killer." And then Stu comes in, and he's the killer too. So the two of them have been working in tandem to create havoc.
In cahoots, even.
In cahoots. So we find out that, and they have kidnapped and tied up Sydney's father.
They had him the whole time.
That's why he never made it.
They cloned his cell phone.
Right. So he's tied up. They have this whole plan now where they're going to kill Sydney, injure each other, and then shoot the dad in the head to make it look like the dad killed Sydney, hurt them, and then killed himself.
Right. So they have the dad the whole time.
They have a whole big plan. The motive for doing this was that Billy originally killed Sydney's mother because Sydney's mother was having an affair with Billy's father and caused Billy's mother to leave.
Maybe. I don't know.
We don't know. That's what he says.
Well, right, but you can't trust him.
No, you can't.
At this point.
Because he's like, maybe I don't need a motive. Maybe I'm just crazy.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So now... So then
and then Stu said, "Well, it was just peer pressure. I just went along with it."
He's just crazy. He's just doing whatever.
Yeah.
So now they're cutting each other up with the knife, and to the point where they're like getting distracted by each other.
Well, because they're doing that.
Because they're trying to make a scene, create a scene.
They're staging it. They're making them look like victims, like the dad did it.
Exactly. So then they get distracted. Courtney Cox comes in from her car crash,
grabs the gun because they left it,
and points it at Billy. And he's like, "Yeah, go ahead, try to shoot me." And she doesn't realize to put the safety off so she can't shoot him. So he like shoves her into a post.
He kicks her into the wall.
Yeah, and then she falls
Yeah.
and kind of passes out. He takes the gun back. Now Sydney's gone.
Sydney and her dad are both gone.
They're both gone, so they're like, shit. And so ends up that she calls them from inside the house.
And she's got the voice box.
And she's got the voice box, and she's telling them, I called the cops. They're coming. You know, your time is over. So Billy's flipping out. Stu's all upset. He's like, my parents are going to be in so much
And
trouble.
he's like losing blood and,
I know, he's
fading.
like, I feel tired. So basically, she jumps out of the closet in the Scream costume, stabs Billy. He goes down.
With an umbrella.
Stabs him with an umbrella. That's
Penguin
right.
style.
And then what happens?
Well, then Stu comes out.
You didn't want to get into the weeds. We are
No.
deep in the weeds.
Well, this is the ending.
She ends up killing
I know.
Stu with the television. Like the television
Right.
falls
Oh,
on
that's
him
right.
and kills him.
They die. Billy comes back to life for a minute, but then dies again. You know.
Gail shoots him.
Gail shoots
comes
him.
to, shoots him.
And then it ends up being Gail's okay, Randy's okay, Dewey's okay, but Billy's dead and Stu is dead. And
Dad's okay. Her dad's okay.
Dad's
too.
okay.
Dad made it.
Yeah, Dad made it. And that's it. You know who didn't make it? Henry Winkler. He died.
No.
But, you know, I liked this movie. I remember liking it when it first came out, and I still like it.
It's
and
a horror movie you like.
Kind of, you know what's weird? When this movie came out, I was the same age as the characters in the film. I was like 17, 18 years old. That's when I saw it. And now, watching it again, my daughter is the same age as the characters in the film. That's just mind blowing.
Does that make you feel old?
Yeah, or just weird. I don't know.
Less old and more just aware of how much time has passed.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel old.
No, I don't.
I don't.
I feel strange
Some
about
days
it.
I do.
Yeah, some days I do too.
Some days I do.
Some days I feel it. But it's just a strange phenomenon, you know, that I was that age, literally, exactly. And then the next time I watch it, I have a child that age, exactly. Just strange.
Every birthday, my Nana would ask me, do you feel a year older? And I would always
Wow.
say no. If my Nana were still around
Yeah.
and she asked me that, I'd be like, yeah, you know, Nana.
Wow.
I kind of do.
Carl, that's
I
not
kinda
good.
do feel a year
Kind of
older.
do now.
You're not even 50.
No. I know.
No. Come on, don't give in.
If you
don't
think
give
you
in.
feel old now, what is it going to be like in 20 years?
Oh, God help us.
no,
he's
God
gonna-
help you.
Carl, what would you rate this movie?
I like this movie a lot.
Yeah.
I give it 3.5 streeps.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to give it 3.5 out of 5 calls from inside the house. I liked it. I think it's a good movie. I don't like
Have you
horror
guys
movies.
seen any of the other ones?
No.
Yeah, we did. We saw the second one.
We did? I don't remember.
We saw it in the theater.
We did?
Yeah.
I do not remember. Was it any good?
Yeah, because it's about
Yeah.
it's a spoof on sequels.
Sure.
So it keeps the meta thing going, and they're like, oh, sequels are supposed to be bigger and have more effects and bigger cast, and
yeah. I think I remember
because
some of that.
one of them they were making a movie adaptation called Stab.
Stab.
I thought that was the second one.
I think that is the second
I don't
one.
know. Yeah.
It's been a while.
I get confused with that and Scary Movie.
Well, that's a spoof.
Well,
of-
yeah.
Well, right, but
And that has
You
the
know.
Wayans brothers. That one's much more diverse than this one was.
why? Because it has the Wayans brothers in it.
Yeah, but there's a reason for that. Like in
Yeah, I know what it is. All right,
it's-
so
Scary Movie's funny.
It is
At least
funny.
the first
Funny.
one.
Yeah.
I know that there are more. I don't know how many.
so many. But I really enjoyed this movie. It's funny. It's worth a watch. It's clever.
Yeah.
For sure.
It stands the test of
Self-aware.
time.
It does. It does.
It's good. It's fun, and it's a good movie to watch with other people.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
I
a-
think
it's a
so.
good,
I do.
And you gave me crap that I didn't own this.
Yeah.
And I sat with that.
Yeah.
And I thought about it.
Yeah.
And I know why I don't
Why
own
don't
it.
you own it?
Because I loved the first one.
Yeah.
I liked the second one.
Yep.
Carl was still holding out for the box set.
The third one, no.
No.
The third one,
Criterion
agitated over
Collection
there.
box set.
the third one made me angry
Oh, why?
because,
Uh-oh.
again, and we talked about this in a previous episode when we talked about whodunit movies.
Yeah.
You have to feel that the end is justified. Like you could have figured it out.
Yep.
And the third one, the person that quote unquote did it is somebody that hasn't been mentioned in like the whole series. And I remember being like, what? Like it was a situation where you never would have been able to figure it out.
Oh.
And that one made me angry. And then the fourth one was the last one that Wes Craven did. He did it. There was a pretty significant gap between the third one and the fourth one.
Yeah.
I never saw the fourth one because I was still salty about
angry.
the third one.
Yeah.
And then I saw the when they rebooted it, I saw that one.
Yeah.
And it was decent. Like the newer ones are pretty good. But at that point, it's like, well, I don't want to just own parts 1 and 2. And then not have, and then maybe
Why
have,
can't you just have one?
5.
Like, there didn't need to be any more than one.
No. Can't you just get one?
This doesn't seem like
the anal retentive side.
Oh
of me.
my God,
Yeah.
Carl, that is so crazy.
Yeah, I'm not saying it makes sense, but
doesn't.
I was trying to figure out why I didn't own it.
And it's because of Scream 3.
And it's because of Scream 3.
Scream 3 ruined it all.
Ruined it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. That's you. That's how you are.
Yep.
This seems like a one and done kind of story.
Well, I get the sequel if you want to continue to be meta.
No, you want to continue to make money.
Well, that too.
That's
but
it.
I mean, you can justify it.
And that's what's frustrating because, some properties you want it to continue because it's an interesting story, you want to learn more. Others, it's like, here's another one because you saw the first one, so you're going to see the next one.
Well, sequels were big in the 90s. They were.
They never stopped being big.
I know, but they were really big in the 90s.
Now it's like, we're just trolling for successful properties. And if
Oh, we're
something
just
gets
dredging the bottom. Yeah.
dragged from the muck up to the
Yeah,
surface. It's like,
definitely.
make it.
Totally. All right, Carl needs to spin for his
Oh,
shake-up.
God, I need to know my shake-up.
Limber up.
Hang on.
Stretch.
All right.
Yep, ready,
we
go,
already
spin.
talked about how...
What do you got?
Okay. Must feature a child or teen protagonist.
Oh, no. Precocious
God.
children.
Oh, I might lean teen.
Yes.
I don't know.
No, I want you to pick a precocious child.
Because rebellious children are even more entertaining.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh.
As long as it's believable or even just barely plausible, I don't have a problem with it.
Well,
It doesn't matter. It's Carl's pick.
I'll figure
You
it
have
out.
to-
We'll figure
Well,
it out.
no.
No.
I'm not
you just
trying to
mean
influence
Matt's
Carl's
level of
pick.
Enjoyment of it
I see.
hinges on.
Yeah.
That's it. Yep.
All right.
Oh, man. All
okay.
right.
I got my work cut out for me here.
Okay. I think it's time to wrap this up.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
Nope.
Nope. Thank you for listening to us as always. We enjoy it. We will continue to waffle, and we will waffle at you next week. Until then,
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
bye.